Hi there, Paula DeFougerol here to tell you about some of the key locations in my historical fiction series, The Chronicles of Iona, which tells the untold true story of the two men who in the 6th century founded the Monastery of Iona and the Nascent Kingdom of Scotland. One was a Scottish warlord, Aidan McGabran, and the other was an exiled Irish abbot, Columba or Columbkilla. Now, the series ranges over the whole of the British Isles and Ireland, but there are really two main locations that we return to again and again in the series that really anchor the stories. One of them is the Monastery of Iona, but the other is Dunadd Hillfort, where Aidan McGabran resides. So first up, Dunadd Hillfort. In the early medieval period, Dalriada existed on both sides of the Irish Sea. You had a half in Scotland and a half in Ireland. It eventually became a maritime power, but at the time of the stories in the 6th century, it was a backwater colony, the back of beyond. At the time of the books, it was like the Wild West, a frontier zone. Most people lived in fortified farmsteads with their extended families and their livestock. In Irish, that's called a rath. If you were very lucky, the ruling class lived on heights, anywhere they could get up and away from everybody else. So sea stacks, hills, promontories that stuck out into the sea. And those were called dunes, which means a fortified place. It was the dunes in which the kings resided. In Irish, a king is called a rí. In Argyll in Scotland, there were three families, three main kin groups at the time, the Kennel Angusa, the Kennel Lorne, and the Kennel Gabran. And each of those Kennela had a major hill fort where their kings resided. But there was always one man who ruled them all, who was called the Rúri, the Great King, or the Over King. And for Dalriada as a whole, the Rúri resided in the hill fort of Dunadd, the Dun on the River Ad, which is in modern Kilmartin Glen in Argyll. Aidan McGabran's father was Rúri of Dalriada for a short time before he was slain in battle against the Picts. So Dunadd Hillfort is where Aidan McGabran grew up. And this is what we think it looks like. There were 3 levels of habitation. The lowest level was where the livestock, where the stables were, where the industry of the fort was. The middle level of the hill fort was for the retainers, for the smith, and for the later, in a century or so, where the goldsmith worked. Anybody who wanted to be close to the king, because at the top level, at the summit of the fort, was the great hall of the Over-King of Dalriada. Dunadd is a really evocative site. It's this lone volcanic plug that sticks up all by itself in the middle of a vast raised peat bog called the Crinan Moss. And it's connected to the sea by a long and winding river, the River Ad. And at the summit of the hill fort, you can also still find today, so you should really go check this out for yourself if you can, all of the ritual items associated with the sacred king-making ceremonies of the Scots of Dalriada. There is a stone throne, a carved libation basin, a carved stone that has a Pictish boar on it, and some undeciphered, really cool, ogham writing, as well as there's a carved footprint that we presume the king, the man who was going to be acclaimed king of Dalriada, had to put his foot in this footprint and swear his oath to protect his kingdom. And you can still put your foot in there today, although it's small. It's only about size 6. But Dunadd's real significance lay in its position in its landscape. Kilmartin Glen has one of the richest concentrations of prehistoric ritual sites in all of the UK. At last count, over 800 and rising. For some reason, people always found this particular glen very special, holy, sacred, whatever you want to call it, because down the glen and out to sea, the sea roads lead you straight to the north of Ireland. You can't miss it. The tides take you straight there. And the seas for these people were not barriers, but highways. So Dunadd's position in Kilmartin Glen links the king of Dalriada to the known world. And the crowning glory of the early medieval layer of Kilmartin Glen's sacred landscape was Dunadd. You can read my series, The Chronicles of Iona, to find out more about it, find out about the earliest phase of habitation on this volcanic plug. And by all means, if you can get yourselves there, you really should, because it is a very special place. And in the meantime, you can learn more by checking out these websites below.